Ami Eden Benimana, who is the General Manager at Zipline Rwanda. Great to have you on the show, Shami.
Thank you very much.
Great. Also joining us, of course, resident panelist on the show, Charlie Haber. Great to have you on the square.
Same here, Dan. How are you?
Good. Great. We are usually also joined by resident panelist on the square, Brenna Namata. Unfortunately, she's not with us, but I know she'll be following with us wherever she is watching online. And I'd like to also just tell our viewers to keep your comments. We'll be reading them out later on in the show on our social media feed, and comment using hashtag #TheSquareRW, as you can see on your screens. Charles, like we always do, we have midweek highlights that the resident panelists share with the viewers. Is there anything that's you'd like to share so far in the week?
When I was brought up, whenever I would be stubborn, I would be beaten. I would be warned, and if I would not listen, I'd be beaten. The same routine would happen whether I was at home or at school. I think the Congolese need to be beaten. They are becoming too stubborn for the region.
And this is in
reference to the Congolese army and their people and how they are misbehaving towards the East African and calling Rwanda names.
Yeah.
I think they need to be beaten and put in their place.
That's
my opinion.
Beaten by who, though?
By whoever can and has a stick.
I think
because I think they're just stubborn children. Yes.
And I think you're also referring to, I mean, these are very heavy-handed words, and you know, Charles, you're known for calling a spade a spade.
Yes.
You're referring to this issue with M23 as well as...
and again, it's not an issue of M23. Yes. Maybe it's a very loaded topic for an entire show.
Absolutely.
I think it's an entire Congolese issue, but they should not drag Rwanda into their mess. My personal opinion is that if they continue doing so, if it was my call, if I was a commanding officer or commander-in-chief of the troops, I would use a stick to beat them, because they don't deserve guns. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a conversation worth having on the show, for sure. Most likely next week. It's something that's been really picking up urgency. I know we touched on this last week, just briefly as midweek highlights, but I think it deserves absolutely as a topic on its own, just trying to dissect and understand, you know, solutions to this increasingly, troublesome problem. But thanks for your midweek highlight, Charles. So we're here tonight to discuss private sector positioning ahead of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting 2022 that is scheduled to kick off on the 20th of this month. And under the theme, delivering a common future, connecting, innovating, and transforming. So, you know, like I said earlier on, we've been waiting for this very important meeting to happen. It was postponed twice, if I'm not mistaken, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's happening this month, and lots of preparations have been going. We've talked about it on the square several times. And tonight we're talking about it from the perspective, from the lens of understanding how the private sector in Rwanda can position itself to look at the benefits and opportunities from this meeting. And my first question is to you, Deputy High Commissioner, Mr. Ben Snowden, from your perspective, looking at innovators and private sector players, what are some of your key expectations on trade and business between Rwanda and the UK as outcomes of CHOGM, just to kick off the conversation?
Thanks very much, Diana, and again, it's a pleasure to be here talking about CHOGM tonight. I think first and foremost, as you said, I'm delighted that CHOGM is finally happening after 2 postponements here, and that Rwanda has the opportunity to host. I think it's really exciting and very much looking forward to it. In terms of your question about the UK and Rwanda and trade and investment links, I think CHOGM provides a real opportunity to demonstrate those growing links between the UK and Rwanda on the trade and investment side. I think it's also a real opportunity to show really the diversity of some of the sectors that the UK and Rwanda are collaborating in, which is really, really exciting. And I think it's an area from the UK perspective that we certainly want to grow in terms of the commercial activity that we have with Rwanda, and I fully expect CHOGM to be a good opportunity to do so. I think it's also a real chance to demonstrate the kind of modern story that Kigali has to tell. we all globally growing back from COVID, and I think we'll really see an opportunity to demonstrate what the Commonwealth family can do in terms of bringing prosperity, and whether that is through UK-Rwanda investment, trade links, or indeed Rwanda wider Commonwealth. I think ultimately that is a very good thing for the Rwandan economy and the Rwandan people. So again, really looking forward to it. In terms of the bit more detail on the UK-Rwanda side of things, there's some really, really interesting, innovative, exciting partnerships that we have. Some of them are new, some of them are existing relationships. And I hope CHOGM can showcase a range of them. I think there are 3 areas in particular that are really exciting for myself and colleagues at the High Commission. The first would be in terms of green business. I think this is something that is very important to both the UK and Rwanda. There are a few UK companies already operating here who do some really interesting and innovative work, thinking about the likes of Bbox or Ox, companies that look to tackle energy challenges or provide agri-tech solutions. So I think that is a real opportunity. Rwanda's position in major conferences on this, the Sustainable Energy for All, COP26 back in the UK at the end of last year, really demonstrates that kind of leadership that Rwanda has in the green space as well. And I think that is something that we want to work on. We want to work in areas that are important to Rwanda, so those sustainable energy and tech solutions. I think there will also be a side event at CHOGM, co-hosted by the UK and Rwanda on climate, which again I think really underlines that partnership. The second area would be finance, I think. Obviously, Rwanda has the fairly new Kigali International Financial Centre. I think this is a really brilliant step, and something that is looking to compete with the likes of Nairobi or Mauritius on the continent. Yes. I think it's a very positive thing. The UK and, of course, London is an important financial hub as well, and we've been able to support the establishment of the KIFC, whether that's through the Business International Investment, the BII, or indeed more technical assistance and country-to-country links. So, for example, Jersey, the government of Jersey have worked closely with the government of Rwanda in terms of sharing some best practice and expertise in this area. And I think CHOGM, again, is a platform to grow some of those financial sector links. The third area, I think, is tourism. Yeah. Obviously, an area that Rwanda is very much focusing on. Brits love to travel, and as we're getting through the COVID pandemic slowly but surely, really hope that is a sector where we can see a greater collaboration and growth. Obviously, the opportunities for travel here, there are some fantastic things to see and do in Rwanda. I think having the Prince of Wales here and showcasing and bringing a bit of attention to what a great place Rwanda is, will keep that kind of sector moving in the UK. I think we are second in terms of visitors here in the country, so hopefully we'll keep kind of pressing on that. Yeah. So I think those are the main areas, as well as the general kind of trade relationship, import, export. I think this was about 36 million in 2021. So something we want to continue to develop between ourselves. I know, for example, Rwandan exports tea, one of your favourite and best exports, is something very much enjoyed in the UK. I believe 30% of Rwandan tea ends up in the UK. Oh, wow. So an area, again, that we'd love to keep collaborating on. That Brits love their tea. Yeah, absolutely. When you say Brits love their tea, I mean, yeah, I think we can all attest to that. And thank you very much, Ben, especially for outlining these key 3 areas of cooperation that we're hoping the CHOGM meeting can even build momentum on existing traction that has been made, but even building momentum further. And, I'm really hoping, I'm not hoping, but I'm very sure of it, especially our private sector players will be, taking note of this and really even putting their energies in these 3 areas that you mentioned in terms of networking and collaboration during and even after, of course, the Commonwealth Health of Governments meeting. I'd like to hear from the rest of our guests, but before I do, Charles, if there's anything you'd like to, comment on, just based on what our Deputy High Commissioner has shared.
I think it's very exciting times, especially in terms of fairness, because what Ben does allude to is in regards to the partnerships and the collaboration we've had with the UK government. My utterances may qualify me for the next Rwandan Minister of Foreign Affairs, but if you look at in the areas of trade, with the likes of Trademark East Africa, in the areas of policy and education, and where they've supported the government of Rwanda, for crying out loud, we have a fantastic cricket ground because of our British friends.
Yes.
So there is a lot to celebrate, and how better to culminate this by having CHOGM in Rwanda. In regards to other areas, I think that provide room for better collaboration. I'll leave that to the show as it progresses.
Thank you. Thanks, Charles. I like that you mentioned education. Some of the squarest and panelists achieving scholars, courtesy of, the Majesty's government. So definitely looking forward to even improved relations and bigger and better collaboration in different sectors. I'd like to go to the second part of the conversation, which is really private sector positioning. And you mentioned Kigali International Finance Center. It's represented here by the COO, Hortense Mudenje. And my first question is to you, Hortense, before I go to Shami. And it's with regards to the Commonwealth Business Forum in particular. It presents a unique platform to really market Rwanda as a great investment destination. And, if you could just start by telling us, for the sake of our viewers, a bit more about Rwanda Finance Limited, Kigali International Finance Center. I think I'm one of the, Rwandan citizens. What do you call it? Is it RFL? Is it KIFC? But if you could tell us more about your institution that you're representing here tonight, and how Rwanda Finance Limited, Kigali International Finance Center, is positioning itself to really tap into benefits that will be presented by the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Diana. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on this show and giving me a platform to be able to explain better about what we do and who we are and how excited we are really for CHOGM. So as you rightly mentioned, I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Rwanda Finance. Rwanda Finance is the investment promotion agency that has been established by the government of Rwanda to be able to promote Rwanda's financial sector, but beyond that, to be able to develop Rwanda into an international financial jurisdiction. So our mandate is quite large, it's very big, but it ties very well into Rwanda's Vision 2050 in terms of becoming a high-income economy eventually. And so the initiative really you've been hearing, that is Kigali International Financial Center, is really that in terms of it's the brand behind how we can position Kigali or Rwanda as an international financial jurisdiction. And so we do not do this alone. We work a lot with key stakeholders in government and the private sector to be able to achieve that. And sometimes when we say an international financial jurisdiction, I'd like to also provide more context here, because not many people understand it or have that contextual background behind it. So what it is we're trying to do is to increase or bring about a high concentration of financial actors into our ecosystem. And that will allow for investors to come and be able to provide even more opportunities for private sector to tap into. Because when you diversify and increase the concentration of actors who provide diverse set of financial services, the private sector benefits in terms of access to capital, in terms of access to opportunities, but also access to professionals who will be able to support them in the different business transactions or activities they're undertaking. So now when it comes to CHOGM, we will be participating and we're very excited to leverage CHOGM to be able to showcase this opportunity. I liked what Ben mentioned in terms of CHOGM is a great platform to tell the story of Rwanda on a global platform. So the KIFC, or the Kigali International Financial Center, is part of that story. And it's part of us being able to showcase the opportunities that one can easily access, now more so in terms of financial access and inclusion. And we're also very much looking forward to leverage CHOGM to be able to engage with the different members of the Commonwealth. So investors, actors, institutions, or individuals who are coming to attend this forum will be able to interact with them and showcase to them the different incentives we're offering for them to be able to structure or domicile their investments here in the jurisdiction, not just for Rwanda, but also the region. The other exciting thing, as also Ben had mentioned, is the partnership. Identifying partners for collaboration. He did mention names in terms of Jersey Finance, for example, or BII, the British International Investment Entity, that we've been working hand in hand to support us in the development of this initiative. So we're very excited, looking forward to showcasing more about this initiative and the different opportunities that our own private sector, as well as the region, can also tap into through this initiative.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hortense. I'll be coming back to you later on just to break that down. I mean, you explained it very well, but I always want to have a bit more tangible, concrete examples to the ordinary layperson on these opportunities you're talking about, these exciting times you're talking about. To the ordinary person in the finance sector, what does it mean for an entrepreneur? What does it mean for a business? How can they position themselves better for CHOGM? So we'll definitely come back to you, and Ben, you'll be helping break that down just a bit more. On behalf of our viewers, I'd like to go to you, Shami. Shami, you're here on behalf of Zipline Rwanda. Zipline Rwanda has been doing incredible things since it was established in Rwanda. So if you could just share with us, what does CHOGM mean for Zipline Rwanda? How are you participating? What are some of the expected benefits you envision as a result of this very important meeting?
Thank you very much. Happy to be here tonight. I think Hortense and Ben have touched on the many points which are going to be very critical for businesses in Rwanda coming from CHOGM. But before maybe I talk about what we expect from CHOGM, let me talk about who we are.
Yes.
So Zipline, as you said, was established in Rwanda in 2016. And the story of Zipline cannot be told without really talking about Rwanda, because Rwanda was the first country where Zipline was performing commercial deliveries. Before Rwanda, the idea of Zipline was still trying to figure out what to do, how to really revolutionize the service. And what we are doing is we're delivering an electric, autonomous, instant logistics system which serves all people equally. When we started in Rwanda, we chose to start in health. The usage of drone in health was the first application for us, and we were the first to do this, and we were the first to do it on a commercial scale. We started in 2016, and the first thing that we really had to do when we came to Rwanda was to figure out with the government of Rwanda, how does this work? Before Rwanda, there was no other country where drones were operating on a national scale every day. So the first thing was to open the environment, open the airspace, open the regulatory framework in a way which allows for this service to actually start. And we worked with institutions like the RCAA, the Rwanda Civil Aviation Authority, the Rwanda Airports Company, to see how are we going to play within the airspace. There are helicopters flying, there are airplanes flying all around the country. How do we collaborate? And we had to find ways, solutions to actually ensure that there's safety within the airspace. And that's just on the side of aviation. Now, when we're talking about the solution that we deliver, so the application, the service that we deliver is one which is meant to actually transform the logistics space and really establish a future in which aerial logistics is part of the natural infrastructure of any country, any business that we're going to work with. When we started at the very beginning, 2016, we worked with the Ministry of Health because our service is actually perfectly suited to actually aid in some of the challenges which happen not just in Rwanda but across the world. When you look at any country, there are people all around the country who do not have access to health services. We're talking about things like blood. If you are 10 or 20 or 100 kilometers from the nearest hospital and you need blood, you could have any condition. I'm not going to go into the medical terms, but the point is things like blood and medical treatments that people need are needed every day. People who need insulin, people who need cancer medication, people who have allergies and everything. These are the people all across the world who every day suffer because there are no technologies to actually deliver the vital supplies that they need instantly. And that's where Zipline really came in. We worked with the Ministry of Health to actually revolutionize the way blood was transported from the blood transfusion division centers across the country. There were 4 of them in each province, to the hospitals. And we've worked to find a way to store blood and medical products and beyond that, and distribute in time, so that when a doctor is going in the operating room, they can call within 30 minutes, within 45 minutes, they're going to get whatever supplies they need. In terms of specifics, as you said, on average, anywhere in the country, when you compare the usage of Zipline versus normal vehicles for these vital supplies, we have reduced by an average of 98 minutes for any delivery. What that means in the health sector is a complete transformation, because now there's confidence within the health system that if a hospital anywhere in the country needs a medical product which is not available on the grounds, they can get it immediately and treat any person. We are doing services like, as I said, we have now gone beyond the initial services that we've done. And the whole point of what we're trying to do is to create an infrastructure that's sustainable, that supports the health system, so that there's security and trust from the person who receives the treatment and the doctor who provides the treatment. We, on average, on a daily basis, we have over 300 flights going across the country from our 2 distribution centers, one in Muhanga and one in Kayonza, delivering blood, medical products of many sorts. Now we have expanded to actually go beyond into the agriculture and animal health sector. And why does this matter? It also matters because of the next use case that we've taken on, which is the fight against malnutrition. I started with health, when you need treatment instantly. But when you look at the health sector, you find that people who come to the hospital usually have suffered for a long time from cases like severe malnutrition, stunting. We have 33% children who are stunted in Rwanda. When you look at the African continent, it actually is bigger. Now, we've taken that as a new aspect that we want to tackle, and we're working with the National Child Development Agency to deliver malnutrition treatments. Now, what we are doing, we're trying to establish a continuum of health around the person from before they are born to the beginning of the cycle when they're having the next child. We want to make sure that from the moment the child is born, they're properly fed, so that we prevent stunting and many aspects which can come from that, such as performance in their education, and even later in their job. And we want to provide treatments. We are working with the RBC to actually decentralize treatments such as insulin, so that people who have chronic conditions and other cases like diabetes, type 1 diabetes, which is something you are born with, you don't get a choice, you can get it closer to you. That allows students to go to school without having to spend, 2 hours, 3 hours going to the hospital and then trying to come back to school. That allows people who suffer from other conditions to actually get it closer to themselves. And now, coming back to CHOGM, I've talked about the many use cases that we're taking on. Yes. As a business, we're trying to expand our business model, to revolutionize it, to innovate around it. And that's because we've seen that there's so many things that can be done within the logistics, specifically in the health sector, but also beyond. The infrastructure of the future should have convenience built in. And that's what we are doing. We're trying to see how do we work with people in different government institutions, in different private institutions, to make sure that we are adding value to their value chain, that we are reducing their burden in the logistics space, to make sure that things can travel instantly anywhere. With CHOGM, we have access to 2.5 billion people from 54 countries, and delegates are going to be here. We want to showcase the work that we are doing. We want to invite them to come physically see. We want to tell the story of how we worked with the Rwandan government to establish ways of doing things, because when people are contemplating the usage of technology, sometimes there are blockers which seem like they're impossible to move, but with governments which are innovative, like the government of Rwanda, there are ways around it. And we'd like to tell that story to everybody who's coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm in class. The breakdown of Zipline Rwanda, the cases, the use cases that you spoke about. Thank you very much, Shami. We'll definitely be coming back to you. But before we go further, we're just taking a very short break, before we go to the second part of the conversation, hearing from you, Charles, and dissecting what each of our guests have shared with us tonight. So don't move. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination. We hope you enjoyed the flight and have a nice day.
Bienvenue au Rwanda.
Ici c'est chez vous. Quelle joie de vous accueillir pour cette rencontre majeure des pays du Commonwealth.
Dear esteemed guests, Rwanda is open. Please feel at home. We are one family of the Commonwealth.
Bashyitsi bahire, u Rwanda ruragendwa. Mwiyumve nk'abari mu rugo.
Turi umuryango umwe wa Commonwealth, ikaze mu Rwanda.
Ikaze mu Rwanda.
Ikaze mu Rwanda.
Ikaze mu Rwanda.
Thank you very much. So we're back to the conversation on private sector positioning ahead of CHOGM 2022. We're here with our guests from Rwanda Finance on behalf of Kigali International Finance Center. We're also here represented here from the private sector by Zipline Rwanda. And last but not least, of course, represented here by Deputy High Commissioner on behalf of the British High Commission Kigali. Charles, we've heard from both our guests, from all our guests regarding private sector positioning, what their companies are, how they're expecting to benefit from this meeting. So really looking forward to hearing from you based on what our guests have said.
I think if you remember your high school history, you remember the Scramble and Partition for Africa.
Yes.
And that was mainly a colonialist approach of how you grab geographical territory and own it. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, that ownership moved from geographical, excuse me, to territorial, to resources, to language, to influencing one or another until independence came through. And then fast forward, today, almost 4 times in a year, you'll have the China-Africa Summit, you have the Brazil-Africa Summit, you have the UK-Africa Summit. It's because we are going back to the era of scramble and partition for Africa, because we have the resources. The deals, whether it's business deals or opportunities that are out there, are very limited. I mean, for crying out loud, we're just watching in the break an image of the Rwanda Convention Center. Last week we were talking about the Kigali Arena. If you wanted to build a facility like that in the middle of London, would you be able to do that? Probably not. if you wanted to do that in the middle of Paris or wherever, would you be able to do that? Probably not. So the opportunities are in Africa, and it's not for any other reason that the likes of Zipline and whoever else is positioning themselves for CHOGM cares to listen, but it's because this is where the opportunities are. And that said, I think Ben earlier on was telling us about the different approaches and the different partnerships and different things they've done in Rwanda. I think it's high time the thinking changes, and I'll move from the Chinese and go to the Americans who used to give us cooking oil, and they would write a big fat thing that with love from the
Chinese
American people.
The American people, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Chinese will come and give us grants for roads, but you'll have 2,000 Chinese working on our roads with 1% of them beating up our people. In the same breath, when you look at CHOGM and the opportunities that it presents, it should be more of a conversation of partnership. That it's not really what the capital that you bring on the table, because you're not bringing the capital on the table as a handout. It's also because the opportunities to deploy that capital wherever you're coming from are limited. Where in many of the European countries you have negative equity, you have the banks will be very happy to give you 0% interest on your money because you're just taking it out. Here we're happy to pay you even double digits of your money. It's just because we need that capital, but it's not a favor that we are asking for. There is a return for you to be made. So the point I'm raising, Ben and Diane, and to the entire people who will be coming for CHOGM, is that there is insurmountable opportunities, but there needs to be better reason, better fairness, more fairness in some of these deals that we are making. And I'll give you two examples. That when you look at, and this is not unique to the British, it's mainly foreign funds, the DFIs, and also other private equity and venture capital funds that Hortense will be hosting at KIFC, is that when they come to Africa, they consider us as high risk. And the way they price their capital is quite often exorbitant, as if it's a one-way traffic that they want to make a killing from the monies that they've deployed in our countries. But if you flip that coin and see how much would they have otherwise made in their respective countries, it is the reason they'll give you is that it is more secure in their countries. And I have a big argument against that. The second thing is so the point on the first one is really be fair in your expected returns, so that it is also fair for the businessman you're partnering with. The second one is to do with the conditions tied to some of these deals. And you'll find, and the UK will have it, the Chinese will have it, the Japanese will have it, and they'll say, if we're going to put money into your economy or into your deal or into your hotel or into your school or your hospital, you have to buy either British products or Chinese products or Japanese products. And we're saying, okay, hang on a second, we're talking about CHOGM. CHOGM is a huge conglomerate of economies. We're talking about the Rwandan economy that you want to support the same Rwandan businesses. If we are making towels and cups and what have you, and you really want to invest in a Rwandan business, why don't you allow me to have Rwandan products in my business and don't compel me to buy British products for that matter? So I think the bigger point I'm raising really is around fairness, and I'm hoping that CHOGM is going to be one opportunity to say, do not look at it in a very one-sided manner and say, if we are going to support you, you have to buy our products, you have to use our engineers, you have to use our architects. It should be a win-win situation, because after all, you're making money as well. Yeah.
So I really like your point, Charles, especially with regards to, looking at fairness and looking at partnerships. A mindset, a mindset of partnerships should really be driving a lot of the deals that are going to be made during this meeting. Ben, what do you have to say in response to some of Charles's submissions?
Thank you, Charles. I think I really would emphasise the point you mentioned, partnerships there. And I think that's really important. I think, you can see from some of the points I outlined earlier that as the UK, certainly, we're really looking to move beyond aid to trade. I mentioned about the work that we do in the financial sector, in addition to support for KIFC, things like listing a Rwandan bond on the London Stock Exchange. These things aren't kind of pushing a hidden agenda. They're about partnerships. And I think that's something that we want to continue to do, not just with Rwanda, but across the African continent and across the Commonwealth. Shami mentioned, 54 countries, 2.4 billion people, and a very young population across the Commonwealth. So the opportunities really are there. I think an area to flag within that as well is something known as a Commonwealth Advantage. So that is essentially a 20% saving that can be made for intra-Commonwealth trade rather than trading with non-Commonwealth partners. And these are all the kind of commitments that were made. There was a commitment to up intra-Commonwealth trade back in CHOGM 2018 in London to over $2 trillion by 2030. Again, these are mutually beneficial, what I'm looking for, kind of projects across Commonwealth partners. And I think, like I said, that move beyond aid to trade is really important.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to go to you, Hortense, regarding the insights that you shared about Kigali International Finance Center. So, for instance, what advisory would you give key players in Rwanda's private sector that you're working towards making Kigali, Kigali a financial jurisdiction, like you said? During this, ahead of this meeting, during this meeting, and after this meeting, these key players, how would you advise them in terms of how to best position themselves? What sort of deals are out there that they should be looking for? What sort of mindset should they have that they should adopt to really tap into these and leverage these opportunities? Just a few tangible examples, and I'll come back to you, Ben, on this in terms of advisory to our private sector, in terms of positioning. I know it's a loaded question, Hortense, but if you could share with us your insights on that.
Yes. Well, thank you, Diana, for that question. And I'll really pivot from what Charles was saying in terms of private sector, opportunity, and capital deployment. When you really think about those three items, you have to consider what links the three, right? Private sector needs access to capital. The investor needs a way to deploy this capital cost effectively and efficiently. And that's really where Kigali International Financial Center comes in, or this initiative of positioning Rwanda as an international financial jurisdiction. It's about how can we attract and adequately deploy that capital, not just for Rwanda, but also for actors in the region, for private sector to be able to tap into this. So when you talk about tangible examples, I would give, for example, some of the key products and services we're trying to promote is the establishment of funds, for example, or even asset consolidation, establishment or creating holding structures, investment holding structures. And so by that example, there are incentives that are attached to it. And by also setting up entities such as funds, there is capital that you're bringing and domiciling in Rwanda, capital and treasury that actors can easily access and can easily deploy to the private sector. So it's about creating that conducive climate that can attract more capital to be housed in Rwanda for easy access for the private sector, but also for actors in our neighboring countries to be able to leverage our jurisdiction for that purpose. And now, when you talk about private sector and how they can tap into those opportunities, it's really about connecting. I liked how the theme for CHOGM is delivering a common future through connecting, innovation, and transformation. So our initiative is looking towards transforming the financial sector to be able to increase access to opportunities for our private sector. And what I can really say is for the private sector is to be aware and to be informed. Because opportunities are not going to come just like that. You need to also be in the right place to tap into those opportunities. You need to be informed. So I would really say to the private sector to keep their eyes open. I would also invite those who will be participating in CHOGM to come and interact and meet us. We have an event on Tuesday, the 21st, at the Commonwealth Business Forum. So this will be a great platform for them to better understand what opportunities they can easily tap into. And the other thing I could say also is most often we talk about capital deployment, access to capital. But I believe also CHOGM is looking at skills and professionals and talent. So for us, we're really looking at how can we enable private sector to tap into professionals who can support them in their business transactions. So while they're able to access capital, they'll also be able to access the know-how, the technical know-how, to support and bring about the ripple effect in helping them to scale their operations. So really what I would call out is to stay informed, be aware, and the second thing is to really, reach out to different institutions that can provide that access to investors and the know-how.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hortense. I'd like to go to you, Shami, also, from a key private sector player in the Rwandan private sector landscape. What advisory would you give, especially in your field? You're working, Rwanda Zipline, in the health sector, you're working in the agricultural sector as well. All these moving parts, all these people that are part of the moving parts of the work that you do, what advisory would you give them in terms of positioning themselves to benefit from CHOGM?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Businesses have been waiting for this for at least 2 years. CHOGM has been the talk in Rwanda and around, I'm sure, the Commonwealth for the last 2 years. So it's not easy to give advice to people who have been expecting something for 2 years. But it's not really a but. It's more like we also have experience. I think, as has been mentioned, Rwanda has become a hub, a location, a central location for summits. We remember in 2016, the World Economic Forum. We remember the African Union. We remember all the Transform Africa summits which have happened since. This has become something that happens regularly. So I believe businesses are aware of what's happening. And that's why a business like Zipline chooses to position itself in different ways. Hortense talked about the event that they have. Zipline also has an event that we're going to host during CHOGM on Thursday, June 23rd. And it's exactly for this, to position. But even for businesses which are not in CHOGM, everybody's going to be in Kigali, everybody's going to be in Rwanda. Ben talked about how Rwanda is a touristic destination. There's so many places to see, but there's so many businesses to see as well. There's so many people to meet. It's going to be a very interesting week if we can get around traffic, of course, which is where Zipline will come in soon. We want to get to a point where we don't need roads. That's one of the cool things about Zipline. But for businesses, it is about that. There's so much that has been done in Rwanda to actually make sure that businesses are exposed to the rest of the world. So I know that all businesses are aware of what to do, but it is about showing what value we bring to the people we work with, to our clients. At Zipline, we consider every Rwandan as one of our stakeholders. That's why we care about sustainability. That's why we want to make sure that everything that we do is safe. That's why we want to make sure that we are delivering the best service that we can. And this is the same case for Rwandans. When we look at the business environment, when we look at everything that happens in Rwanda, one of the things that everybody insists on is customer care. We're getting in a time when every person who enters any door is a potential client. That's what we try to do at Zipline. If anybody comes to us, and we have so many people visit, and we have so many people we work with, one of the things that we really care about is our customers, and that's what all of this time is going to be about. How do we take care of everybody who's coming here to see our businesses, to make sure that, one, they know our story as Rwandans, our story as a business, and what value we create for everybody we work with. So it is about really looking at the world in a different way, in a way, to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing, but not just from our perspective, but from the perspective of the clients that we serve.
Thank you. Thank you. I know, Charles, you're also jumping to jump on what I'm trying to say, but thank you very much for mentioning customer care, Shami, as part of how we can really position ourselves as private sector to really tap into CHOGM. Charles, in light of CHOGM, but also just generally in the square, customer care, service delivery is such a core theme on this show that we keep on harping about on and really we can't miss the ball with this meeting when it comes to that. So especially, people in the hospitality and events industry who are preparing, I think they should prepare to the T, but maintain those standards even after CHOGM. It should not just be because of this event, which we know has been happening for 2 years, but customer care, this should be the test, I think, for it in Rwanda. And it should keep the momentum. The momentum should be kept, if anything, or even built after CHOGM. But customer care is something that, we're really hoping will be at its peak during this meeting. Charles, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Hortense mentioned keyword opportunity. So there's an old adage that goes that opportunity knocks once at every man's door.
And woman.
Yeah, it's just semantics. So when you have big events like CHOGM, and this is not unique to Kigali, everywhere where they've been, it's either that you reap from the event, or you rip it apart, or a combination of the two. Now, ripping from the event means, just as we're driving up here to the studio, I used a road that I've never used before. I didn't even know I could get through RBA via the road above Minagri and 2 new roundabouts or turns, junctions created in a space overnight. And then I asked myself, this work ethic. Now, when you're doing a road, the multiplier effect of that road is so many. If you pick the construction company and let me just say Horizon, there's somebody supplying them aggregates, stone, fuel, trucks, labor, food, mention it. So many people are benefiting along the way. So just to do that one road, even if it is 200 meters, you can turn around the life of somebody. So that's about reaping from it. And then that road is not going anywhere. I mean, look at that road to Kagarama. Look at the road that connects from the U.S. Embassy through La Colombière up to the top of there, and all the other ring roads that have been done. These roads are not about to go anywhere. So we have, as a country, as a city, there's huge benefits. The one where I have a problem with is people who are taking advantage of this. Some funny villager who has a lodge in Chimirongo is charging 20,000 francs a night. All of a sudden he's saying, because of CHOGM, I'm going to charge $100 a night. A hotel that has just been downgraded to a 2-star that used to charge $80 a night, downgraded to a 2-star, at most it should be charging is $40 a night, has shot up its rooms to $200 a night. What have they done with their rooms? Nothing. So I have a particular problem with the Rwandan business mindset, and I think Shami alluded to the fact that how businesses are positioning themselves. I think some businesses are positioning themselves to fleece our guests, and I have a particular problem with that. Now, in regards to customer care, I was particularly disturbed by news that I'm not yet able to independently verify, that we are importing people to help us with our customer care. Kenyans and people in the hospitality space. Fine. Maybe we have a gap. No, definitely we do have a gap. But what lesson is that going to leave us? That we actually need to style up that space, and we need to get a very painful rod to discipline us. So it will leave us with long-lasting positive impact, but I hope it also leaves the business sector with hard lessons.
A learning curve for sure. Ben, we're coming towards the end of the show. I'd just like to hear your thoughts, and we've been dissecting so much tonight, but yeah, just a couple of your thoughts based on what Charles has said and Hortense and Shami.
Of course. So I guess first, I very much agree with my fellow panel members, Hortense and Shami, in terms of, I guess, some of the advice for private sector to get involved and to try and take advantage of CHOGM. I think Hortense drew on the theme of connecting, and I think that's absolutely right. This is the first time in 4 years the Commonwealth family has come together due to COVID, and the business forum certainly is that real opportunity to bring together CEOs, business leaders, heads of state. So the opportunities are really there for not only Rwandan businesses, but from those around the Commonwealth who will be attending. So again, very much agree with the panel members to very much take advantage of that opportunity. I also think since the previous CHOGM in 2018, the world is in a different place. We have come through COVID. Well, we are coming through COVID. It's still very much a challenge globally. But the impact of that in terms of different areas for collaboration and for investment. So with greater remote working, digital solutions have progressed a lot. A lot more technology focus is coming forward as well. There are different kind of sectors for businesses now to be engaged in. So I think, encouraging people to connect, use CHOGM, to try and boost their kind of company and private sector opportunities is right. And again, as we recover from COVID, private sector investment is absolutely what's needed to help the global economy. On Charles's point, I think it's always a challenge in terms of customer care service. Rwanda is now, I think, second on the continent, only to Cape Town in terms of conferencing, and the record that Rwanda has for hosting these large international events. For example, having the World Telecommunications Development Conference ongoing now a week and a half before CHOGM is just incredible. And so I think, that is just going to go from strength to strength. And I very much agree, the infrastructure that comes with hosting these conferences has a real long-lasting impact, and I hope it will continue to benefit the Rwandan people as well.
Thank you very much. I want us to just quickly read some of the tweets that have come in, and I think this tweet is directed to our Rwanda Finance, and if we could have that on our screens. They say, CHOGM 22 in business, very informative and inspiring. How far has Rwanda Finance Limited gone in the nexus of climate finance linked to COP26, rural infrastructure and adaptive capacity of communities? Hortense, would you like to take this on and answer it briefly?
Yes, I'd love to. So when it comes to climate finance and COP26, we did participate in the last COP26. And for Kigali International Financial Center, climate finance really speaks to us as well. So as we all know, Rwanda is working towards becoming a carbon neutral economy in the next 20, 30 years. And at the end of the day, we will need actors who can support us to achieve that feat. And when we talk about climate financing, it's a niche that we're looking towards in terms of positioning and attracting capital that can support us to work towards achieving those targets. So in terms of Kigali International Financial Center, we have developed a roadmap on how we want to tackle that. Now, one of the key areas in terms of climate finance, sometimes it has become a very commonly used word, but it's really about financing that supports us to have a sustainable impact in our society or on our environment. And so most of the investors we are attracting, we want to attract them to be able to support us in meeting the key targets that Rwanda has set towards becoming that carbon neutral economy. So in the roadmap, for example, we're targeting one sector like the capital markets industry. How can we support the capital markets or the stock market to be able to raise capital that can support either government or private sector actors to be able to support climate-friendly projects? we're working towards attracting actors who can be able to put in place tools that would allow us to assess what is a project that is climate friendly, for example, and that will also garner and attract more capital towards that. So really what I would say is that as Kigali International Financial Center, we consider us as the backbone. The financial sector is the backbone towards supporting private sector and government to meeting their objectives. And so really our key objectives and what we are working towards in support of that is to attract and raise capital that can support such projects and such investments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of the show. You know, like I told you earlier on, Ben, before we started the show, you don't understand how 55 minutes goes by so quickly. But I'd like to thank you for joining the show on behalf of the British High Commission and the UK government. It's been an honor having you in the square.
Thanks for having me.
Great. I'd like to also thank our guests, Shami, as well as Hortense, on behalf of Zipline Rwanda. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And Hortense, thank you very much for joining the show on behalf of Rwanda Finance Limited.
Thank you so much.
Great. Charles, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your comments, for your insights shared. To our viewers, thank you for chiming in and sharing some of your views. You know, this is a great conversation. We're looking forward to CHOGM 2022. Most likely, we'll have a dissection of CHOGM after the event, Charles. I think we'll have guests dissecting it after it's happened, you know, just looking at some of the outcomes and the, you know, the big changes we are hoping that it will usher in terms of driving forward the private sector based on
managing expectations.
And managing expectations,
yes.
Yeah. For me, again, my takeaway is just really customer care is something that we should really look at as a country based on these meetings and build up on it even after these events. So thank you very much to our guests. To our viewers, thank you very much. To our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you for always supporting the Square. Have a good night. See you again next week. Thank you.